Hey guys, welcome back. Andrew here with Ambient Endeavors, and today we're talking about a topic that I'm probably most passionate, excited, opinionated about when it comes to gear. Now I try and reserve a lot of that preference or bias just for the sake of letting you guys make your decisions in your gear purchasing and in your journey. I know we all have to kind of choose the pieces of gear that work best for our contexts and for the music and for the goals that we have, but I'm really pretty outspoken about my love for 5-watt amps, and I'm going to build the case today why I think everyone should own a 5-watt amp. If you're new to the channel or just discovering Ambient Endeavors from this video, welcome. Please hit the subscribe button below so you can keep up to date on all the upcoming videos. We got some fun projects coming out this summer, some fun videos ahead, and so you don't want to miss that stuff. So hit subscribe below. If you dig the video, please hit that like button and drop a comment if you want to engage in this conversation. And I want to hear from the folks that maybe are also fans of little 5-watt amps. If you have a favorite version of a 5 or 5-ish watt little tube combo amp, please drop it below. Tell me about it, and hopefully we can mix some more of these amps in future videos as we circle back to this topic. I think my love or interest in these little 5-watt amps came from a pretty early point in my career, in my journey with music. I was a middle schooler just picking up the guitar for the first time, as my dad was also kind of picking up the instrument again. And so we had a lot of fun and spent a lot of time going to guitar shops, poking around forums, and kind of trying to find the gear that was both sort of budget friendly, cost effective for us as we were just starting to learn or play again, but also sounded great and was reliable and was interesting or cool. And so we pretty quickly stumbled upon old silver-faced champs, which back in that day you could find on Craigslist kind of any day of the week for about $250. And so I remember one Saturday making the drive from southern Minnesota up to the Twin Cities, knocking on someone's door and taking home a 70s silver-faced champ that had a nice upgraded Weber speaker, really cool amp, sounded really great, and my dad actually still has it, which is a cool kind of marker as well. And so we're going to start there as a vintage example of this 5-watt small tube combo amp category. The champs and the Vibro Champs are some of my absolute favorite 5-watt amps for a number of reasons. The first, and I think most obvious reason that we love these 5-watt amps is their compact nature. A little Vibro Champ like the one behind me here probably weighs about 15 pounds or so. They're really compact, they're really convenient, you can really take them anywhere without too much stress. And for a number of reasons, it's really nice and convenient for the amp to have a smaller footprint. Fender started making these Vibro Champs in the mid-60s. It was a follow-on to the lineage of champs that started in the late 50s that were smaller even than these Vibro Champs, had a smaller speaker, and really were just kind of rock and roll machines. The tweed versions of the champs tended to be amps that you'd want to just crank and get that snarly, kind of overdriven, saturated tweed sound. The champs and Vibro Champs from the 60s and on into the 70s had a little bit more of that kind of traditional Fender scooped, clean sparkle, while you can still get some fun breakup when you crank them up past 5 or 6. I think the Vibro Champs are kind of these timeless, or maybe even ahead of their time, types of 5-watt practice amps. They were those student model amps back in the day, but to have a compact, great sounding little tube amp with a 2-knob tremolo in it is pretty fantastic. And so I think even as the prices on these amps have risen, I think they're still pretty compelling choices, especially if you're wanting to get a vintage version of an amp like this. Another convenient thing about these amps is that they're quite ubiquitous, and pretty much any tech who knows what they're doing can pretty easily work on them and get them up to speed. They were built like tanks. They were built as amps that were really easy to work on with their turret board and kind of point-to-point style wiring. And so even if you get one that has some issues or has some funky stuff going on inside, it's relatively easy and hopefully fairly affordable to get them back up and running. Another thing that I've really enjoyed doing is, because a lot of companies will make aftermarket cabinets and other parts and accessories for these amps, you can throw the original chassis into larger cabinets. I've done 1x12 versions. I've done like this one, a similar sized cabinet with a 10-inch speaker to the original. You can also throw it in a head cab and make it so that you can run it with a bigger speaker cabinet externally. All sorts of fun stuff you can do with these amps, and they just sound really great. We're going to check out this one, which is a late 70s Vibro Champ. I put a 10-inch Alnico speaker in it, and it's in a Mojotone reproduction cabinet there. The same size as the combo cabinet for the original Champs, but just with that bigger baffle for the 10-inch speaker. I feel like that kind of fills it out in a fun way while still retaining that small amp sound. It's cool too that Fender has released these amps in their 68 Custom line. So that 68 Custom Vibro Champ actually includes reverb on board, which is a fun addition, as well as a 10-inch speaker to give it some more versatility and kind of dynamics for using it in different contexts. But let's check out a vintage 70s Vibro Champ with that 10-inch speaker, playing Novo Miris J into it. There's a lot of new production amps on the market now that have kind of gotten into the 5-watt, or we'll just call it low-watt, small combo amp game. One of my favorites is the Hiwatt Hi-5. Hiwatt sent this amp over about a year ago or so, and I think it really captures that kind of Hiwatt character with the present bright top end, the kind of bold cleans that you'd expect from a Hiwatt in a small package. I do love that they have a 10-inch speaker in that amp, and so while it's a little bit more substantial, it's a slightly bigger amp, definitely heavier with that bigger speaker and some other things going on inside it. It really provides a cool 5-watt experience while making it a little bit more versatile with a ton of headroom. A lot of times the gripe of 5-watt amps is that you don't have a lot of headroom just due to the nature of the circuitry design. There's not the types of design or staging to allow for a lot of headroom. But this Hiwatt Hi-5 actually has a surprising amount of clean headroom on the clean channel, which makes it fun to be able to throw pedals at to get those really clean, loud sounds. And so I'm really a big fan of this amp. It's a fun example of this sort of small 5-watt tube combo category that you can get brand new from a new production company, a new offering. And so we're going to check that one out now and see how that sounds. A lot of you find yourselves in situations where you're not playing out that much or at all. Perhaps you're also in situations where you are in a house with other people or young kids. Maybe you're in an apartment that has some noise constraints. And so some of these small amps are perfect, are really great for those types of settings where you want to have that richness and dynamics of a tube amp. You want to push some air through a speaker, but you don't want to have it cranked, and you don't want to have your 30-watt amp at like 1. So that's, I think, the beauty of these 5-watt amps is that you can get some fun, great sounding tones at pretty manageable volumes for basement playing, for bedroom playing. And on the flip side of that too, I think there's some versatility in a lot of these amps to use them in gigs, especially in smaller clubs or coffee shops, and especially with some reinforcement. So obviously a lot of times you'd be wanting to throw a mic on an amp like this if you're playing it for a gig or with any sort of ensemble or drummer. But I have done a number of gigs with Vibro Champs. I've done a number of gigs with 5-ish watt amps. And for a lot of the clubs and the bars that I play, it really kind of works. We're going to move on to the last category, and that's the boutique category of these 5-watt, these low-watt tube amps. One of my favorite versions of the boutique category here are some recent amps from Joe Morgan. He's offered a few different versions of these 5-watt circuits in head form from his custom shop. I've had the pleasure of playing a couple of them, both the 5, which is his original 6v6 powered version, as well as the AC5, which is a really fantastic take, kind of a more voxy sounding version of this circuit, and both are just so great. They definitely have a pretty wide range of sounds and tones that you can get with them. There's a nice range of volume. There's a nice kind of sweet spot in that volume too, where you can get some sweet tube tone and warmth to it without having to crank it or be blisteringly loud, which is really great. I think you just did a fantastic job with them, and so I have demoed a couple of them in other videos, and I'll link to those above here. These ones I believe are offered mainly, if not exclusively, in head version, and so that has some limitations, but it also provides you with the opportunity to pair with your favorite cabinet and get some more volume and some more life and kind of fullness from those amps, making them a little more ideal for some of those smaller gigs like we were talking about earlier, or mid-sized gigs when you've got some reinforcement too there. I wanted to also add just a few other amps in this category, primarily from the boutique world, because I think there's some fun amps being made by builders that fall into this like 5-watt or low-watt tube category. One of them being the Winfield Typhoon. Now, Winfield is a small builder down in Arizona, I believe. He's been doing amps for years and years, and I've had probably 10 of his amps. Just fantastic amps, incredible value. A lot of these amps are coming in under $1,000 for these hand-wired tube amps. And his Typhoon is a fun EF86 front-ended, kind of voxy, like dirty voxy AC4 kind of thing. But he makes those in small heads as well as 1x10 combo versions, and they're really cool amps, fun 2-knob amps to try out as part of this low wattage tube category. Another amp that's really piqued my interest is the Tone King Gremlin. It's a 5-watt Again, 2-knob, little combo, and I believe they make a head version of it too. Just another fun example of this kind of low wattage tube circuitry with Tone King's take on that. And I believe there's a couple different modes you can run that amp into to get some different feels and stuff. But the Gremlin has been of interest to me too. Also car amps, a builder again who's been around for a number of years. They're kind of one of the originals in the boutique line of amp builders, but they have a couple fantastic small low wattage amps. The Mercury is like one of their flagship amps, I believe, and that's more of an 8 watt. I think it's a slightly higher wattage amp with some great attenuation and a pretty vast array of controls for that amp. That's an amp that if you're wanting to really kind of shoot the moon with a boutique version of a 5-ish watt amp, I'd look into the Mercury. They also have their Car Raleigh, which is a 3 watt, pretty small compact combo amp that's again pretty intriguing to me. I haven't gotten to play that one, but I would be wanting to check that amp out as well if I was on the hunt. And then finally, for a new production amp that's more easily attainable and has some cool features, the Supro 1605R is a very compact, small, little 5-watt amp that has onboard reverb. It also has some cool outputs to allow you to do some wet configurations, as well as line outs and things like that to make it convenient for recording or other signal routing. So that's another amp I'd look into if I was hunting down another 5-watt amp to check out in the collection here. So this has been fun for me. I hope that you guys have enjoyed just kind of geeking out a little bit and going down the rabbit hole of these 5-watt small compact tube amps. There's a whole number of them out there now, from vintage examples, new production models, as well as the boutique kind of higher end examples of these amps. And I think there's so many that are really fun and worthwhile to check out, that I think it's a great addition to your amp collection. It's a great addition to your gear collection for a number of reasons. So thanks for watching. Please drop a comment below if you've got an amp in this category that you think I missed. If you have a favorite low wattage tube amp, please let me know about it, and I'd love to hear about it and check it out if possible. Otherwise, take care.